When Marissa and I got married, we didn't have much, but we had each other. And in those early years, we convinced ourselves that was enough. We lived in a cramped one-bedroom apartment with peeling wallpaper and a heater that rattled every time the temperature dropped. The furniture was mismatched, collected from garage sales and hand-me-downs from relatives. Our mattress was a second-hand find, so soft in the middle that we'd roll into each other during the night, not that we ever minded. Money was tight. Some months it was a choice between paying the electricity bill or buying enough groceries to last the week. But every hardship, every sacrifice felt bearable because it was temporary, just a bridge we had to cross together. Marissa had dreams bigger than both of us. She wanted to become a doctor, not for the money or the prestige, but because she genuinely cared. She wanted to heal people, to change lives. And I believed in her dream as fiercely as she did. It wasn't even a question. Of course I would support her. Of course I would work extra shifts, take on side jobs, do whatever it took. "We're a team," she would whisper to me late at night, tracing lazy circles on my chest as we drifted off to sleep. Always. I clung to those words during the hard times. When I dragged myself out of bed at 5 in the morning to start a 12-hour shift at the mechanic's shop. When I showed up to bartend late into the night, smiling for customers while my body ached. When I came home to an empty apartment because Marissa was studying at the library until dawn. Every sacrifice was a brick in the foundation of the life we were building, a life where someday we would look back and laugh at how far we had come. I remember the nights she would fall asleep at her desk, head buried in anatomy textbooks, highlighters scattered like fallen leaves. I would gently lift her into bed, tucking the covers around her, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "One more day closer," I would whisper, and I believed it. Every exhausting day, every missed birthday party, every lonely dinner for one. It was all leading somewhere. Some nights, when the loneliness clawed too sharply at my chest, I would close my eyes and picture us in the future. Marissa in her white coat, stethoscope around her neck, smiling that smile that could light up a whole room. Me standing beside her, proud, steady, the man who had stood by her side through it all. It was enough to keep me going. Enough to make every hard moment worth it. We weren't perfect. There were fights about money, about time, about how far we were stretching ourselves. There were moments when I saw the exhaustion in her eyes and wondered if we were asking too much of each other. Moments when she snapped at me out of stress, and I bit my tongue to keep the peace. But through it all, I never doubted us. "When you're a doctor, everything will be better," Marissa would say, her voice thick with hope. "We'll have time, we'll have choices, we'll have the life we always wanted." And I would nod, holding on to that dream like a lifeline. We were building something bigger than the struggles we faced now. Something lasting. Something unbreakable. Or so I believed. When Marissa finally crossed that stage, diploma in hand, tears streaming down her face, I thought we had made it. I was there in the audience, clapping until my hands stung, shouting her name like the proudest man alive. Every late night, every sacrifice, every lonely moment, it all melted away in that instant. We had reached the promised land. Or at least, I thought we had. Because sometimes reaching a dream isn't the end of the struggle. Sometimes it's just the beginning of a heartbreak you never saw coming. At first, the changes were so small, I almost missed them. After graduation, Marissa started her residency at a prestigious hospital 2 cities away. We agreed she would commute for a while, staying a few nights a week in an apartment the hospital provided for new residents. It made sense. Residency hours were brutal. Long shifts, unpredictable schedules. She needed to be close by. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself we had survived worse. But deep down, something cold and heavy began to settle in my chest. The first sign was the way she spoke about work. Not just the long hours or the exhaustion, I expected that. It was the way she talked about her new world. The people she worked with, the lectures she attended, the doctors she admired. Dr. Patel said my case notes were the best he'd seen all week. She'd beam over dinner. Everyone was laughing at something Dr. Andrews said. You know, inside jokes from the OR. There was an energy, a lightness, in her voice that I hadn't heard in months. Maybe years. But I wasn't part of it. I wasn't part of the jokes. I wasn't part of the victories. I wasn't part of the life she was building now. I listened, smiled, asked questions. Tried to be supportive, tried to stay connected. But every word felt like a reminder of how far apart we were drifting. Then there were the parties. First, she didn't go. Too tired, too busy. But slowly, as she settled into her residency, the invitations piled up. Welcome parties, networking events, fundraisers for hospital charities. You should come with me, she offered once, hesitantly. But the idea of standing in a room full of doctors, lawyers, polished people with degrees hanging on their walls like badges of honor, it made my stomach twist. What would I even say? Hi, I fix cars and pour drinks while my wife saves lives. No, that wasn't fair. That wasn't all I was. But sometimes, standing next to her now, it felt like it was. So I stayed home, and Marissa stopped asking. And little by little, our lives began to move on two separate tracks. One night, after a particularly long week, she came home late. I was waiting up for her, takeout containers cooling on the coffee table, a movie paused on the screen. She walked in, tossing her keys into the bowl by the door, her whole posture sagging with exhaustion. Hey, I said, standing up to greet her. She gave me a tired smile, a brief peck on the cheek, and sank onto the couch. Rough night? I asked gently. She nodded, rubbing her temples. Long surgeries. Complicated cases. I can't even think straight. I handed her a plate, but she shook her head. I'm too tired to eat. I just need to sleep, she murmured, already pulling herself up. I watched her disappear down the hallway without another word. The movie played in the background, forgotten. The food sat untouched between us. And for the first time, I realized I wasn't just losing time with her. I was losing her. Days turned into weeks. The gap between us grew, silent, insidious, impossible to ignore. The conversations that used to flow so easily now stumbled into awkward silences. The laughter that once echoed through our tiny apartment faded into polite chuckles and strained smiles. She wasn't cruel. She wasn't mean. She was just somewhere else, living in a world I couldn't touch, couldn't understand. And the worst part? I was starting to wonder if she even wanted me to try. Then came the night that cracked everything wide open. We were getting ready for bed, brushing teeth in parallel silence, when I asked carefully, Are you happy, Riss? She froze, toothbrush in midair. I saw the hesitation flicker across her face, so fast, so small, but unmistakable. Of course, she said too quickly, spitting into the sink. I'm just tired. You know how it is. But I didn't know. Not really. Not anymore. Later, lying in bed with the distance between us a living, breathing thing, I realized. I had supported her through everything. I had sacrificed, believed, loved without limits. And now, as she rose higher, chasing dreams I had once cheered for, I was being left behind. Quietly, inevitably, painfully. Not because she stopped loving me, but because somewhere along the way, without either of us noticing, I stopped being enough. The breaking point came on a Saturday night. I had spent the whole afternoon cooking, real cooking, not just takeout or microwaved leftovers. I wanted to surprise her. I thought maybe if we slowed down, sat together like we used to, we could find our way back. The table was set with candles, the old playlist we used to dance to playing softly in the background. When Marissa walked in, her hair still damp from a shower, her bag slung carelessly over one shoulder, she looked surprised. What's all this? She asked, eyebrows arching. Just a night for us, I said, trying to sound casual, not desperate. She hesitated, glancing at her phone as if debating something. I'm tired, she said finally, setting her bag down. But okay, let's eat. Not exactly the warm response I had hoped for, but I took it. I poured her a glass of wine. We sat. We ate. And for a few minutes it almost felt normal, easy, familiar. But like a cracked glass, it didn't take much pressure for everything to shatter. I don't even remember how the argument started. Something small. Something stupid. A joke she didn't find funny. A comment about her new friends, her new life, the way she had started dressing differently, speaking differently, moving like she belonged to some other world now. You're changing, I said, my voice tight. Marissa set down her fork, her jaw tightening. I'm growing, she corrected coldly. And I'm not. I shot back, wounded. She looked at me then, really looked at me, and something shifted in her gaze. Something hard. Something final. You're not on my level anymore, she said, the words slicing clean through the air between us. Silence. The kind that makes your ears ring. The kind that feels heavier than shouting. I stared at her, stunned. For a moment I thought I had misheard. That maybe if I blinked hard enough, shook my head, the words would rearrange themselves into something less cruel. But they stayed. hanging between us like a guillotine. What does that even mean? I managed, my voice cracking despite myself. She sighed, rubbing her temples like I was a headache she couldn't get rid of. It means we're different now, she said, quieter but no kinder. I'm moving forward. You're still stuck. Stuck. I repeated, bitterness creeping in. Stuck because I gave up everything so you could chase your dream? Her eyes flashed, defensive now. No one forced you, she said sharply. You chose that. I flinched. Because she was right. And because it didn't make it hurt any less. You chose me, I said, my voice dropping low. We chose each other. We were supposed to build something together. She looked away, her hands tightening around her wine glass. Maybe we built the wrong thing, she whispered. I felt something inside me, something deep and sacred, fracture beyond repair. All the years. All the sacrifices. All the nights I stayed up late working double shifts while she studied. All the dreams we whispered about under cheap blankets in our tiny apartment. Reduced to a shrug. A mistake. An obstacle to the new life she wanted. We didn't finish dinner. She left her plate half-eaten, disappearing into the bedroom without another word. I sat alone at the table, the candles burning low, the food cold and congealed. Outside, rain began tapping against the windows, soft and relentless. Inside, the silence was deafening. That night, lying awake on opposite sides of the bed, I realized something brutal. Marissa hadn't just outgrown a phase of her life. She had outgrown me. And the man who once held her dreams in his hands, the man who stayed up late fixing cars and pouring drinks so she could chase something bigger, had become a burden she no longer wanted to carry. I turned my face into the pillow to muffle the sound of my own heartbreak. Because sometimes it's not the betrayal that breaks you. It's the moment you realize you're no longer even worth betraying. The days after that night blurred together into a gray, aching fog. We still lived in the same apartment. Still shared the same bed. Still went through the same motions, brushing our teeth side by side, folding laundry, cooking meals. But the warmth was gone. The easy laughter, the lingering touches, the unspoken comfort of being each other's home, all of it had evaporated, leaving behind only obligation and silence. It was like living with a stranger. A stranger who had once known every inch of your heart but now barely glanced your way. I tried. God, I tried. I made reservations at her favorite restaurant. She canceled, citing exhaustion. I bought her flowers, the same daisies she used to tuck behind her ear. She smiled politely, set them in a vase, and forgot about them. I suggested a weekend getaway, something spontaneous like we used to do when we were young and reckless. She hesitated, then mumbled something about being too busy with rounds. Every effort I made bounced off the invisible wall growing between us. And little by little I stopped trying. Because loving someone shouldn't feel like begging for scraps of attention. Because you can't force someone to stay when they've already left in every way that matters. The final conversation happened on a Wednesday. Nothing special about it, no big fight, no dramatic scene. Just two exhausted souls sitting across from each other at the kitchen table, the weight of too many unspoken words pressing down on the space between them. We can't keep doing this, Marissa said, breaking the silence first. I looked up from my coffee, my hands wrapped around the mug like it could somehow anchor me. I know, I said quietly. She twisted the ring on her finger, the same simple band I had saved up 3 months' salary to buy, turning it round and round like she couldn't decide if she still belonged to it. I love you, she said, her voice cracking. I do. But it's not enough anymore. It was supposed to hurt. It did hurt, but not in the sharp, stabbing way I expected. It hurt like a dull, deep ache, like an old wound reopening. I know, I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper, because I had seen this coming, because part of me had been grieving the end of us long before she said the words out loud. We talked logistics, like strangers negotiating a polite business transaction. Who would move out? How we would divide the furniture? What to do about the lease? She cried. I stayed dry-eyed, too numb to find tears. Not because I didn't care, but because somewhere along the way I had already mourned us. In every lonely night, in every cold shoulder turned away from me, in every polite smile where love used to live. That night, I packed a bag. Just the essentials. Just enough to get away. I stood in our bedroom looking around at the life we had built piece by piece, the framed photos, the bookshelves we had assembled on a rainy Saturday, the tiny crack in the wall we had always meant to fix but never did. All of it felt foreign now. A museum of a love that no longer existed. Marissa stood in the doorway, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. Where will you go? She asked, her voice small. I don't know, I said honestly. Somewhere I can remember who I am without you. She bit her lip, her eyes glistening. I'm sorry, she whispered. I smiled, a broken, tired thing. Me too. And then, without another word, I picked up my bag, walked past her, and stepped out into the cool night air. The world outside felt jarringly normal. Cars rushed by. People laughed on the sidewalks. Life moved forward without pausing for my heartbreak. I stood there for a long moment, the weight of my choices sinking into my bones. I had supported Marissa through everything, every late-night study session, every exam, every moment of doubt and fear. I had given her my time, my love, my dreams. And in the end, it still wasn't enough. Not because I failed, but because sometimes love is not about how much you give. Sometimes it's about whether the person you're giving it to still wants to receive it. I took a deep breath, feeling the cold air burn in my lungs. And then I walked away. Not because I stopped loving her, but because sometimes loving someone means letting them go even if it tears you apart. Especially if it tears you apart. The first night alone was the hardest. I rented a small room above a dusty bookstore downtown, a temporary place, or at least that's what I told myself. A twin bed, a creaky old desk, a single lamp with a flickering bulb. The kind of place that didn't ask too many questions. It was cold. It smelled faintly of old paper and loneliness. I sat on the bed for a long time, my bag still at my feet, staring at the cracked ceiling, wondering how the hell my life had ended up here. The days passed in a strange blur. I woke up. I went to work. I came back. I slept. Rinse. Repeat. People at the garage noticed something was off. Fewer jokes. More silences. But no one asked. And I was grateful. Because how do you explain losing someone who's still alive? How do you explain mourning a future that was never promised, but always believed in? Some nights, the ache was so heavy it felt like a physical weight pressing down on my chest. I would catch myself reaching for my phone, fingers hovering over her number, aching for something, anything, that would make it stop. But I never called, because what was there left to say? Hey, remember me? The man who loved you when you were nobody, who believed in you when you couldn't even believe in yourself. The man you outgrew. No, there are some silences that are kinder than words. Healing wasn't a straight line. There were good days, days when the sun felt warm again, when a song on the radio made me smile instead of ache. And there were bad days, days when I hated her, hated myself, hated the world. Days when the emptiness gnawed at me so sharply I thought I might actually break. But slowly, painfully, I started piecing myself back together. Not the man I was before her. Not the man I was with her. Someone new. Someone a little more bruised, a little less naive, but still standing. Still trying. I found comfort in small things. Early morning walks before the city woke up. Old paperback novels scavenged from the bookstore downstairs. The quiet satisfaction of greasy hands under the hood of a car, the way the world made sense when it was just gears and bolts and engine oil. Simple things. Things that didn't require me to be on her level. Things that didn't ask me to be more than I was. Just me. Months later, I heard through mutual friends that Marissa had moved into a high-rise condo near the hospital. That she was dating someone new, another doctor, naturally. Polished. Successful. Perfect. I felt the sting, sharp and familiar. But it faded faster than I expected. Because by then, I understood something I hadn't before. Her leaving wasn't about me not being enough. It was about her becoming someone who needed something, someone different. And maybe, just maybe, I needed something different too. One rainy afternoon, almost a year after I walked out. Maybe both, I said. And in that moment, for the first time in a long time, I felt something loosen inside me. A tiny, stubborn spark of hope. Not a fairy tale ending. Not a grand, sweeping love story. Just a beginning. A chance to rebuild. A chance to write a different kind of future. One that started not with promises to someone else, but promises to myself. Because love can lift you. It can break you. But sometimes the greatest love story you'll ever live is the one you write when you finally choose yourself.